Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Noah from the Marion Library Service, and welcome to our Library Through the Lens live webinar with special guest Madhavi Nawana Parker. Since the closure of our libraries and venues, we've been working hard to still connect and engage with you through our Library Through the Lens series of adult programs delivered differently. We had to reimagine how to bring you the author talks and presentations that you've grown to expect from us, so thank you for joining us today. This morning, Madhavi, Director of Positive Minds Australia and internationally published author of Resilience, Confidence and Social Emotional Intelligence books, will talk about her new book, Sanguine, Increased Confidence, Optimism and Self-Awareness in 21 Days. Please feel free at any time during the presentation to type questions you have for Madhavi into the Q&A text box on your screen, and I'll ask her these at the end of her talk. Now sit back, relax and welcome Madhavi. Welcome, Madhavi.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me now. Are we good, Tracy?
We are.
Wonderful. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you all for making the time to come and join me to talk about one of my books. I couldn't have had this book come out at a better time to support the community. Sanguine means optimism and confidence during troubled times. And while I was writing it, I couldn't have imagined the troubled times that we would all be finding ourselves in. The reason I wrote this was after 20 years of working with young people and teenagers and adults through my work on resilience and social emotional intelligence, I thought to myself, how do I come up with a really practical book that anybody can pick up and on their own or as a family or as a school or an organization really build that inner mental strength that I've been studying over the last couple of decades, in a way that if you're not the kind of person that wants to go and talk to someone or wants to do this with others and really wants to have that time for self-reflection, I've put it all into this book with a 21-day challenge, I guess, where each day you get to spend some time and really reflect and build some skills to build that inner strength. So I hope over the next half an hour or so I can share some tips with you that you will find useful for your own life and also for the people that you spend time with, whether it's through your personal life or your professional life. So Sanguine is all about doing 3 main reflective questions each day, but then a bunch of new questions as well that really delve into how you see yourself, how you see others, and how you see your life and really where you want things to head for you. So at first, to just look at what mental strength is. So a lot of my work has been around resilience. So how do we build our resilience? You know, when we all enter this world, we come with our own personalities, our own temperament, a whole bunch of genetics, and all of those things combine together in how we then meet what we're faced with in our life. So what we see when we are spending time, you know, with others, what our life at school is like, what our life with our family is like, and all of these things start to interact. And as they interact, we start developing thinking patterns, and our brain neurologically wires pathways for how we think, how we perceive, and how we experience life. And if you're like me, our mind is full all day. There's this background chatter. So while we're working and playing and resting, our minds are constantly processing what happened in the past, what happened earlier this morning, what's happening right now, what might be happening in the future. And these thoughts come with an automaticity that is very hard to inhibit. And I'm sure you've all heard about the importance of mindfulness and presence of thought. The reality is we know these tools are so crucial for us, but they are so incredibly hard to master, and they take time and practice and lots of self-compassion and encouragement. So what I've tried to do with this book, and I'm going to share as many tools as I can cover in this short amount of time we have together, what I've tried to do is really go back to the basics and really go back to what I've been studying over the last couple of decades. And what I found is really working to get us self-aware enough that we can actually build these tools and move forward. Because it's like we all really know where we want to be. We know what we want to do. We know what's important to us. We understand all of these things, but we're kind of on this treadmill of trying to get there without actually looking at how far we've already come. So that's one of the first things I want you to think about when you're building your mental strength muscles. And that is exactly what we're doing through this book and through this conversation together, is remembering that it's a daily thing that we need to do. Just like to keep physically fit, there are things we engage in. We can't then go, you know what, for 6 months, I'm going to walk every day and become fit and physically more fit. And then once I've done that, I'm done. I don't need to come back to that because now I'm mentally fit, physically fit. It's the same with our mental fitness. We need to invest every day, even if it's just 1 minute. And there's tools throughout this book that take 1 minute. And I'll share those as many as I can with you today. But it's about getting into the habit. So over this 21-day period, you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Some people tell me, oh, Madhavi, I just love doing it. So I just end up 20 minutes sitting there writing in here and writing in my other journal as well. So it gets your brain into the habit of investing back in you and developing that strength so that the habit feels so natural to you by the end of that 3 weeks that you just start finding yourself focusing that way, back on yourself, back on what it is that matters to you. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to just take a moment, and because we have so little time, I won't stay here long and you can always go back to it. I want you to acknowledge and appreciate and value how far you've already come in your life and how many things you've already achieved as a human being. And I'm not talking about academic achievements or professional achievements, but you can add those, of course, if you want to. But these are not the things that are most valuable about who we are. It's who we are at the heart and soul of our character and our value system and our moral compasses. And why I talk about this and why this is one of the exercises on, I have no idea which day, but on one of the days in the book is, you know, as a society, we focus so much on our, you know, what we put forward, what people can read by looking at our CV or the car we drive or the suburb we live in or the job we do or the salary. You know, none of this stuff matters at the end of the day. It's not the stuff that really brings us happiness and mental strength and resiliency and confidence. When we look at the global literature, you know, our lives, and this pandemic has reminded us, you know, to just get a little bit humble again, because you could be an executive with everything that the world has valued on a societal level as so-called, you know, value. But at the end of the day, any of this can be taken from us. You know, all of this can be taken from us. But the one thing that nobody can take from us is our integrity and our sense of who we are and what we add to a room. Every time we walk into a space, we bring something just by being who we are. And if we build this in ourselves, it means that at times like what we're all going through now, we will absolutely be overwhelmed by it, and we will be taken for a moment, and we may find ourselves lost and confused and stressed, and that's normal. These are normal emotions. But when we have an inner confidence, an inner optimism, an inner integrity, what that means is we can bounce back from these times. We are strong within ourselves. We are, in fact, the anchor that is unmovable and unshakable in the long term. So the first thing I want you to do is just really celebrate. We don't do this enough. We're always looking to the next thing. We achieve something and then it's like, right, well, now I need to do this. It's not like that. Let's take some time to really list 5 or 10 things that you're so incredibly proud of, that you've achieved at this point in your life, in your character, in your value system, the value you've added to other people's lives, the value you've added to your workplaces if you have one, or a family if you have one. You know, what are you already proud of, rather than thinking about what's ahead? So that's one of the things I want you to always remember, is every time you reach a goal, a small goal that you've set for yourself, once you've reached it, take time to acknowledge and celebrate it, rather than just moving on to the next thing and ticking it off the box. You know, goals are important, and there's certainly a section in Sanguine that looks at helping you set, you know, some small goals to work towards. But it's really, really important that those goals are meaningful to you and reasonable and fair to you, and that you take that time to celebrate them. So that's the first thing as we build our mental strength. You know, the next thing that we really get our confidence from and our mental strength from is a sense of competence. And we're all so competent, and yet it's so easy to feel, if, you know, we have this funny thing called a negativity bias. We're all born with it. It's back from when we were cave people, and we needed to be on high alert for the problems in our life. Back then it was, you know, saber-toothed tigers, who I think you'll agree with me are no longer a problem for us. But of course we were programmed, you know, our amygdala, the part that was designed in our brains to tell us there's danger, get away, is still there. And for some of us, you know, sometimes it's our personality, it's our temperament, it's the genetics, it's what we've been through in our life. You know, there's such a big spectrum of what sort of contributes to our resiliency when things around us are not so great. But what happens in that moment is our negativity bias, the bit that's looking out for saber-toothed tigers that no longer exist, it focuses on everything that's wrong. So it doesn't focus on our competencies, it focuses on our incompetencies. And if you're like me, you've got some of those. I've got loads of them. I've got so many things I could do better and differently. But I also forgive myself that I'm just a person. I'm not a pre-programmed robot. And I always just go back to the fact that I'm absolutely 100% doing my very, very, very best to be the best I can be, and to be kind and respectful and basically harmless. So when we look at competence, we've got to be aware that your negativity bias, this is a part of our programming. It's connected to our fight, flight, freeze. It's always on the lookout for what's wrong. And it explains why. You can have a sensational day, everything can go incredibly well, and then that one conversation or the parking fine or whatever it is, you know, that one thing can make you feel like you just had the worst day ever. And it's none of our fault that we respond this way, but we do have this natural programming to focus on that. And this is what, you know, this book and what my conversation with you is about, is just be aware of it. Just go, you know what, that's my negativity bias. So if you're a parent and your child has just left the lights on in their bedroom as they've walked out the door for the 496th time, it feels like today, also a mother of 3 young children, by the way, in that moment, you're going to feel so frustrated because you've told them so many times, right? And your negativity bias is going to be telling you stuff like, why don't they remember? You know, the power bill is so high. And it's focusing on that one thing they've done wrong. And yet there are so many beautiful things. There's so much more about them that they are doing right. It's the same in our workplaces, our marriages, our friendships, our relationships. There's always so much more that is going right, even in our most challenging periods in our lives, which we've all experienced, because this is the color of life. It never follows a straightforward line, does it, my friends? It's always full of ups and downs. So I want you to take that time to be really aware of where you're already competent and to really focus on your strengths. So there's a really lovely there's lots like this, but one of my favorite ones is the viacharacter.org website, and it's free and it's globally researched to look at what are your strengths as a human being. You know, who are you? You know who you are, but sometimes we attribute who we are to our profession or our roles as parents or children or friends or whatever it is. But we want to really now look at, well, who was that person that arrived on this earth? You know, what is your chief operating system? You know, are you kind? Are you generous? Are you funny? Are you wise? Are you honest? Are you caring? Are you compassionate? You know, what is it that's you? And what this wonderful survey does is it really helps you remind yourself of what your top strengths are as a human being. And the global research around this, it has shown that people that tune into these strengths, particularly the top 5, and it will tell you what they are in like 15 minutes. It's actually quite fun to take. You can take it on your mobile phone. So like that's really easy if you like doing that kind of thing. And there's also a youth survey. So if you're a teacher or a parent and you're thinking, oh, I kind of like to do this with my children or my students, there's also a youth survey, and there's lots of other ways you can measure this, but this is one that I particularly like. And what you do is you answer a bunch of questions and it tells you, and what the research shows is people that are strengths focused. So they focus on who they already are, not who they think they should be or who their parents thought they should be or who their next door neighbor might think they should be or wherever that advice is coming from, who they already are. If they're able to incorporate, if you're able to incorporate your key strengths in your life, in your work, if you work, in your marriage, if you're married, or your relationships, if you're in a relationship, if you're able to use those strengths, what the research shows is you will feel more energized and you will enjoy your experiences in all of these things more. And for the people who really don't know what their strengths are, they're really just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, just trying to do the right thing like we all are, you know, trying to do well, trying to do their best, but really not aware of the depth of their strengths and character, you feel depleted because you're not doing the work, the life, the experience, the relationships that are aligned with your actual character and inner value system. So I highly recommend you go and take that. If this interests you, of course, it might not be your thing, but it's certainly something I've found useful in helping people develop that sense of competence. Otherwise, you know, when you think of children or you think of us as adults, you know, there are so many things that we're measured for that really we can lose so quickly. So, you know, if you're a kid, you can feel like you're really great at a particular sport, but suddenly you hit a certain year level and then your peers take over for whatever reason. And if you've based all of your value on how good you are at sport or how good you are at your job or how good you are at those sorts of things that are so changeable, then you're not really tied into what's here that nobody can take from you. So that's why I'm so focused on this in my work and in my writing, is to really get this key message out there as much as, you know, as broadly as possible, that we already have so much here that we're not tuning into. So competence. So we know to have that mental strength, we need to have that competence. We need to feel capable. We really need to make sure we are spending enough time in our lives doing things that make us feel capable. So what is it that you not only love to do, but that you're good at doing and you enjoy doing, rather than thinking about the things that you still want to grow? We need to do that, and there's certainly, you know, places throughout the book where you can look ahead, but we really want to focus on where we're already capable. So making sure we spend some time every day. If you're a carer in some capacity for young people, how can they be engaged in things that are meaningful, that they feel competent and capable in? Because that's how our inner confidence points kind of increase, and the neurological wiring in our brain is strong for what we're good at. We also need to build that mental strength. We need to be connected with others. And this can be hard for some of us, because some of us are naturally, find social emotional literacy really easy, and it comes naturally to us to communicate with others and to make friends. But for those of us who are perhaps more introverted, or social skills don't come naturally to you, they're learnt skills that we need time with. And I think as a society, we really want to make sure that we are embracing the introverts and the extroverts, because we need introversion. Introverts do a great job at taking time to think things through, and that in their moments of quiet, they are thinking and they are processing, and when given enough time, they have so much to contribute. So we want to really support that, but remember that introverts might not feel as energized by spending lots of time connected with others, and they might need a break a little bit quicker. But we really want to make sure that our introverts are as connected. So being connected with people is it as far as your resiliency and your happiness. So when we look at the global research, people behave better, people manage their feelings better, people feel more confident and happy when they have friends, when they have people that they can spend some time with, whether it's through a hobby and shared interests, or whether it's through your family or your community. It's crucial that not only we seek that out, but that we become the kind of people that offer that to others, that bring that compassion. I often say, in my work with health professionals and educators and parents, I remind everybody, we're all born with an essential goodness. We're all born with character and kindness and a really honest and keen desire to be connected. And so a really important thing that we can offer others is to remember, we're not going to all get along. We're not going to all like everything about each other. But if we can always try to look for the best and assume the best in others, it helps us be more connected. It helps those people who are often disconnected because they come off as a bit gruff initially, but they're really nice people, but they're not particularly socially skilled yet. When we're able to have that compassion and that understanding, we're contributing to the global social thread through every interaction being a constructive, positive one. And if it can't be positive, is what I say to the middle schoolers I work with. I go, here's the thing, it's never okay to be mean to another person, but because you're kids and you're still learning, and sometimes you'll make mistakes, you just got to make it better. And if you can't be kind yet to someone because they haven't been particularly kind to you, or there's some other stuff going on that's far more complex, just try to be neutral. Let's try to be on this earth where we're tightening and strengthening the social thread in a way that makes us feel confident in who we are, that really matches our personal moral compass and our integrity. Because when we do that, we will be infinitely happier. The research tells us that. We'll be mentally stronger. But also we're contributing in a way that has a ripple effect, so that when we're gone, we've planted seeds in every other interaction we've had that's added to other people's mental strength and resilience as well. So the final tool that's really, really important, and I notice the library's asking you to pop some questions up. Yes, please do that. I will stop talking in 5 minutes, and I would love to answer some questions, because I miss being in a room with people, and it will be my only moment to know that you're actually there, still listening. So the final thing is our need for contribution. So for that mental strength, actually, I'm going to give you 2 more. I want to talk about optimism as well, but making sure that we're contributing in any way we possibly can, based on our strengths, based on our value system, based on our integrity. When our lives are part of something bigger than ourselves, we grow in infinite ways. So when we look at the happiness and resilience and confidence research around the world, it tells us that it's really important to step outside our own head. So a lot of my work is teaching the tools for young people to do that, but also people our age and older to be able to think, well, here I am, I'm a nice person, I've got some really great strengths. How can I add value to my family? How can I add value to my community? How can I add value to the world on a broader scale, so that I can be part of that ripple effect? I want to talk very briefly about optimism, because that's the other part of Sanguine is yes, it's about developing your mental strength muscles, but it's also about developing hope. And the reason it's just so crucial, and this is, I'm not talking about blind optimism or being positive all the time, because that would be really unhelpful for me to suggest that that was even possible. You know, the color of life means that we experience a broad range of emotions. We all feel angry and jealous and frustrated and annoyed. That's just part of being a person. But what we want to be able to keep returning to is an inner confidence and optimism, not only in ourselves, but also in our future and also in others. So it's really important that we have this as part of that inner strength, because if we don't have hope, if we don't tune in every day to what it is we want to, you know, are looking forward to, and to, it's not blind faith, but it's this belief that just like we've got over every hideous obstacle we've all faced, right? We've all been hit with something, and lots of things along the way that we could not have anticipated. And at that time, when we're faced with that horrendous thing, we look at it and we think, how am I going to do this? I can't do this. And then you do it. And we've done it all. We've done it from birth until this point. We've got through every single challenge and horrendous thing. And in fact, we've come out of it taking it as a lesson. And that's another thing I, you know, try to, you know, want you to think about is all of these things. You know, it's the last thing we want to think during a pandemic, or when you lose your job, or when, you know, a relationship comes to an end. You know, the last thing you want to think of is right, well, what have I learned? Of course you don't want to think that. You just want to be mad about it. So be mad about it and feel all your feelings. They have to be there. But then to be resilient and confident and grow, we want to then go, you know what, I'm going to come out of every single hideous thing I go through stronger. And it might be just minutely stronger, right? It might just be that little tiny bit stronger. But we want to take everything in our life as a lesson in some way or form, and not just a lesson for ourselves, but a way that we can then contribute to the social, to the global social thread. How do you make meaning so that you can keep adding value, not only to your own life, but to the lives of every person you encounter? So when we have hope, we have this belief, you know what, it will be okay. I will get through this, and I will come out of this, and my life will continue to fall into place as it should. So the opposite of hope is hopelessness, and hopelessness is directly related to anxiety and depression, which of course has so many other factors, you know, why a person, you know, gets in, you know, experiences that, because it's genetics, it's wiring, it's, you know, neurobiological hardwiring, it's brain chemistry, it's all of that other stuff. But we also need to remember, we need to have hope. We need to do what we can to build that inner strength. So I'll quickly show you what this, I'm shocking at, you know, so this is the book we're talking about today. And yes, I think Tracy mentioned I've got lots of others which you will find on the Positive Minds Australia website. They're on a whole bunch, they're all on different topics. But the one that we've spoken about today is really simple. You can write straight into it. So I hope I'm kind of showing it okay. I would have done a slide share, but I didn't want to do slides today. But as you can see, you know, there's a consistent one which asks you, you know, what are 3 things that went well today? So you would all know about the global literature on focusing on what's going well to help with that negativity bias. So we need to do that and get into that habit for us to focus on the good aspects, what we already have in our lives. The next question is, what didn't go well today? And then the third is, what did you learn about yourself today? So that's the repeated over the 21 days. But then on the other side, you'll always see some other questions. So on this, I've got random page day 11, and it's like, name 5 things that make you feel good. So mood lifters, then it looks at the mood sappers, and then it looks at how you can engage more in the things that build that. So that's a page on mood. There'll be other pages on self-awareness, other pages on confidence. At the bottom of each page, there's always a confidence tip to build your inner confidence as well. At the back of the book, there's a whole stack of things to do with your tough feelings, things to do with your well-being. I have to remind myself what's in here: empathy and compassion, kindness, character, confidence building compliments that have nothing to do with how you look, confident body language, and a whole bunch of other things. Now, that book can be written straight into. So it's for children 8 and up, and it's for adults all the way through across your life. So it wasn't easy writing it in a way that makes it approachable for all those different age groups. But I really wanted to be able to do that so that whole families could do it together and whole schools could do it together. So I don't know what else I can really tell you about it, except that, yeah, you don't have to, you know, write in it. If you just wanted one and you just wanted to talk about it with your family, you just use those questions and things to guide and, you know, some conversations to build everyone's confidence and optimism and also self-awareness. So I'll pass it over to all of you. I hope there's some questions there. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Madhavi. Yep, there are a few questions here and some comments. So Caroline says, I really resonate with the idea of sanguine. I remember coming up as a sanguine on the 4 temperaments test. However, I also equally came up as melancholy. I can certainly be a deep thinker and an overthinker. How to balance our melancholy with our sanguine? You may have just started to cover this in a way with the negativity, bias discussion and awareness.
Now was it Carolyn? Was that your name?
Yes.
Hi, Carolyn. That's a fantastic question. It's so hard, isn't it? Because we are such colourful beings. We have so many of our strengths are also where so many of our difficulties also lie. And it's about yes, I touched on it by talking about the negativity bias, and the fact that you have this self-awareness is 3/4 of the way of getting where you want to be, because so many people haven't tuned into that yet to know what it is that gets in the way for them and to know what their strengths are. So you need both of those things, because that ability that you have to think deeply, to see also that you need to be able to see the negatives in order to be able to see the positives. You need to have a good balanced perspective of life. So there's lots of good things that come with that. It's about really engaging, you know, really working out what works for me. So what lifts my work? One of the other questions in Sanguine, which I think might be a really good thing for you to do, is to really sit down and do a massive brainstorm of what am I doing already in my life that is working? So that's your first question. And then the next question is, what am I doing in my life that's not working for me? And when I say not working, it's like that's basically making your life harder or unpleasant. And then what are some things I'd like to start doing in my life that might be helpful for me? So with your big brainstorm of the things you're already doing, basically at the end of that, you write, keep doing this, and make sure you try and find time to keep doing those things. Then on the things that you're doing that are really unhelpful and not supporting who you are and what you want to do, we want to reduce those. I mean, unfortunately, there are things that we just have to do, and we can't just stop them, because they're part of the way our lives are structured, and we just need to continue engaging for whatever reason in that. But how do I reduce that? How do I look differently at that? How do I prepare myself mentally before I go into that situation that's stressful for me? How do I put my armor on to cope with it? And how do I then relieve my stress after I've been there? And then with that third question, what are some things you can start doing? So it's all about, what do I stop? What do I keep doing? And what do I start doing? So that is a question in the book, and one that might help you really start balancing those sorts of things out. Gratitude practice would be fantastic for you, spending some time each day to focus on you, to be self-compassionate about what you're grateful about and proud about in you, and then also investing some time in the things that went well. I hope that helps answer. It's hard because I don't know you, but I did my best.
That's great. Thank you, Madhavi. Monique says, how long do we allow ourselves to acknowledge and feel the negative feelings, anger, sadness, frustration after a disappointment, so that they don't rear their head again and we can move forward?
Oh, Monique, that's such a great question. And if I ever say the wrong name, because I've sure the wrong one, is it Monique? Monique, such a great question. You know, this is really, really tough, isn't it? Because when we get a difficult feeling like the ones that you've mentioned, we naturally oppose it. It feels so uncomfortable and so unpleasant. And if you're anything like me, I just want it gone. Thank you very much. I've got no interest in being here. And this is the challenge, is when we're able to consciously accept that feelings are going to come with an automaticity, and they have a place, right? You know this. They have a place. They come to tell us something. Our feelings are our messenger. We're programmed to experience some anxiety, some anger, some frustration, jealousy. All of these things come to tell us you feel uncomfortable with what's going on. So when we meet feelings with resistance, we basically push them away. And I know that's not your question, but for others who might be listening and have a similar question, if we don't accept it, what we'll do is we'll push it away. So we'll go and watch something on TV, or eat something, or drink something, or go and do something else, or whatever it is we'll do to distract from the emotion. And many of us grew up not getting, you know, our kids are lucky in this generation. They get taught how to deal with their feelings and their emotions right from the beginning. Whereas most of us from the generation, that wasn't something there was any literature about the importance of doing. So we're all learning to do it in our, 20s, 30s, 40s and beyond. So a really important thing to do is to learn to just briefly accept it. Because if you stay there, so say you're just really angry, the first thing you do is you label the feeling in your head. So you go, oh, I'm angry. So by naming it, you're actually starting the soothing process to cope with it. So first you name it in your head, and then you allow yourself to feel it as long as you can handle, Monique. So here's the challenge. Because I don't know you, you know your life, and your vulnerability to being able to cope with emotion will be different to mine, right? Because you've had a different life to mine, and I've had a different life to the other person that's listening to this conversation. So we all need to tune in with what we can cope with at the time. And then it's like, remember at the beginning I spoke about this mental strength. It's building a muscle. It's a daily muscle building exercise. So when I was first learning to sit with the discomfort of emotion, I'd sit with it for a very brief amount of time, for as long as was tolerable. And then I would go and move it through something positive, constructive. So that might be some gratitude practice. That might be some breathing meditation. That might be staring at a beautiful tree and describing it in detail in my head. You might have heard of those grounding techniques where you engage your 5 senses and you bring them together. So sometimes it's literally just allowing yourself a minute. Now, if you're feeling braver and you think you're ready, you sit with it as long as you can sit with it. Clearly, if you're in the middle of doing something, you're going to have to, do that other thing. But sometimes we need to just sit with sadness. You think about when you're grieving, you think about when you're angry, you think about when there's an injustice in your life, or when you're feeling hurt. some of those feelings need days before you can even think about moving them through, but we don't allow ourselves to cry on the sofa for 2 days, but sometimes we might need to. So it's about having that judgment, looking at the context of your life at the time. Can I invest some time to just be quiet and feel all of this stuff and let it through, but also keeping it balanced and really knowing yourself well enough to know, if I spend too long there, because there's lots of people I work with who they spend too long there, then they go into the next dark place, and it's not good either. So what I want you to do is really tune into yourself and think, well, how much of this can I tolerate while I'm building the muscle? And always make sure all of this is balanced out with lots of mental and physical resilience work to make sure you're staying fit on all of those levels so that you can cope as you do that. I hope that helps, Monique.
Excellent. Caroline also says she loves the VIA strengths test. I know people say sometimes your strength can be your weakness. I wonder what you'd say to this. For example, my top strength is lifelong learning, which is fantastic, but the flip side is I can overwhelm myself in content. Is this where awareness comes in?
Is that when what comes in?
Awareness.
Yes, exactly. So it's self-awareness. It's as simple as that. And so I'm very similar to you. I love learning. I love writing. I love doing all of this, but I've also got a day job, and I've also got 3 young children, and all of these other sorts of things. So I want to dive into everything. I want to give as much as I can, and I want to write every article I'm asked to write. I want to read every article that comes into my inbox. But then I've got to go, you know what? There are some other things, that you also need to do, and don't forget rest. And for some of us, that is our rest, is the lifelong learning, and we feel rejuvenated by it. But it's all balance and self-awareness. It's about leading a whole life, isn't it? And knowing with our strengths, all right, well, that strength can't be in operation all the time, and tuning in to periods of time where we're just simply doing nothing and staring into space and rejuvenating or focusing on some of those other strengths. But you're absolutely right, Carolyn. It's all about self-awareness. We just have to know ourselves. That's why it's in the subtitle of this book, and it's why it comes to so much work. We can't change a single thing until we actually know where we're already at and what's working for us and what's not working for us.
There's also another question, introvert and extrovert. Is it one or the other, or can you be smack bang in the middle? Can you be introvert in one context and extrovert in another?
Well, I can tell you something that nobody else really knows about me other than my immediate family and close friends. I'm smack bang in the middle. So when I was studying psychology at university, and all through, every time I've had to take any assessment, I sit right on the middle of those two things. But everybody who meets me just thinks, oh, she's totally an extrovert, right? But absolutely, it's a spectrum, and it varies in our life, don't you think? Like, I think of myself as a child, I think of myself as a person in my 20s, 30s, and now in my 40s. I'm at different parts of me pop out at different times, but depending on where I'm at and what I'm doing. So whether it's my parenting hat or my work hat or my hanging out with my husband hat, where I can just completely switch off and be an introvert if I really need to be, and it's totally cool. Or sometimes I just need to switch on my extroversion. So what we need to be aware of is, first of all, where do I sit? Neither are better. I know as a society there's this massive value on extroversion, but I'm a massive introvert, lover of introverts. A lot of the young people and adults I work with are major introverts. And so it's about just celebrating wherever we sit on that spectrum. And what I try to teach people in my work, and what you might want to think about, is developing the mental strength to be able to switch on what you need to use at the time. This is a massively helpful emotional intelligence skill. A lot of this research, it's still in its infancy. People are suddenly going, oh, right, okay, so we don't need to all be extroverts. So there's some value in being an introvert. Okay. And so now that, you know, there's more stuff coming out about this, one of the things that people are talking about in this area is that if we can work out the ability to bring out our strengths, because we've all got some introversion, we've all got some extroversion, but we just use it differently, to know when to bring it in, to use it to not just our own advantage, but to the advantage of the situation. That's a great skill to have. So I think one of the questions in this book, or it might be one of my other books, that I try to get people to think about is to be really aware of, are you supporting your introversion and extroversion as a human being, and making sure that you're not diving into too many social situations if they or what's the opposite of energize, if they deplete you, because some people just feel like, oh, I've just got to keep doing all of this stuff because that's what society expects, and because I'm smack bang in the middle of being an extrovert and introvert, I can do that, but then you leave drained because you've done too much of it. So again, it comes back to that self-awareness, and you're absolutely right. It is absolutely on a spectrum, and it's really fun taking that test. And I actually think, you know, most of those tests are now readily available online, and if you go to that viacharacter.org website, you'll see there's a whole bunch of other ones, and you probably find yourself spending a couple of hours just going, oh, this is so much fun, I'll take it. And it's a globally researched tool, so you know you're actually getting some information back that you know, has been taken right across the globe with a broad range of people. Hope that helps.
So we've got one last question here. So practicing mental fitness daily is as important as physical fitness, whether we are feeling good or struggling, even if we feel time poor?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we're time poor, I think we're all time poor, aren't we, on some way or another? And you might do, you know, 100 times more things in a day than I do, but my sense of time poor will feel equal to yours. I don't know if I explained that well. Like, we're all on a spectrum of what our tolerance for, you know, how many things we can do and achieve. This daily mental fitness is about being self-compassionate. We just are not looking, we know from the, you know, what the WHO statistics are telling us about our stress levels, what we know from the global research, we're just not investing enough in ourselves. You know, we feel it's indulgent to do it. And you know, like you, I find it incredibly hard to make that time to invest in those things, because, you know, like you, I'm juggling a whole bunch of things. But if we don't invest, and when I talk about mental fitness, it might be as simple as, before you fall asleep, you give yourself a little mental pat on the back for all the things that you did well that day, or all the things you loved about your day. That is a mental fitness tool, because you're focusing on what's going well. That's building your optimism, that's building your gratitude, that's building your mental strength. So they don't have to be big things. They can be the last thing we do, or in the morning. You know, a really great thing to do to build your mental fitness is to start your day with hope, and just to imagine that you're going to have a great day, and that you're going to give your day the best, and you're going to look for the best in others and in situations. That's mental fitness. So it can just be a moment in your mind. It can be that every time you stop at a red light, if you drive a car, every time you stop at a red light, you're going to focus on one thing that you're really proud of in your character and in who you are. So when I'm talking about mental fitness, there's a whole bunch of other things we can do that of course take more time, but it's just being nice to ourselves and really stopping and going, well, I'm just going to spend some time in positive thought. You know, that dialogue I spoke about, right at the beginning, how I talked about this mental chatter that comes to all of us with, you know, such automaticity. It's just bang, 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 bang. It's like what we've got to do, what we haven't done, all of those things. If that is dominant in our mind, it's very hard to relax and manage our strengths, manage our stress. And so by sneaking in these positive, constructive and helpful and useful dialogues wherever we can. We're building our mental strength that way.
Oh, great. We don't have any more questions unless there's anything else you want to add, Madhavi.
I think that's all. I could talk all day, but I do need to get to my next appointment.
And you know, we could talk to you all day too. So thank you so much, Madhavi, for joining us today and for inspiring us to meet life's up and downs with courage and resilience, and to value ourselves and be who we are, especially during these times we find ourselves in. So it's really weird at the moment, as we all know. And for 24 hours only, you can receive 10% off your copy of Sanguine when you order online, and you can find it at positivemindaustralia.com.au/books, and all of Madhavi's other books, of course. And you can follow her on Facebook at Positive Minds Australia, and also on Instagram. And please keep following the Marion Library's Facebook page, our website, and check your inbox to be kept up to date on all of the upcoming Library Through the Lens presentations and workshops. Thank you again, Madhavi, for joining us, and thank you to everyone else.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure, and thank you all for joining me. I wish you all the best.
No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.